Good evening, everybody. Sorry about the delay there. Welcome to the extraordinary meeting of Holbeach Parish Council. This meeting occurs when the council needs to meet to discuss items or make decisions before the council's next scheduled meeting. Just before we continue, if there is a fire alarm that sounds off, there's an exit here and one just here, and we should all convene and meet to the far end of the car park, and everyone gets allocated before you disperse, please. So I'll introduce each agenda item in turn, and please stand to address council. Please clearly raise your hand to indicate you wish to debate on an item, and I'll invite you to speak in turn. The known principles and standing orders provide us with guidance with our meetings, and the first 10 minutes of this meeting is dedicated to questions from members of the public. We try to resolve these questions tonight, however, sometimes this is not possible, and where we're unable to answer your questions, we'll resolve these as quickly as possible via the clerk. Do we have any questions from members of the public this evening? Two? Who would like to go first? Yes, please.
Good evening, my name is Patrick Ward. I'm from Holbeach St Mark's, and the reason for coming tonight is the fact I noticed that a Facebook announcement was given today in respect to the community governance reviews and the most suitable way of representing their local communities. I note that the official proposed timetable states receipt for request for community governance review was made to South Holland District Council on the 1st of March. However, in their terms of reference, Article 1.2, it states the request was made following a meeting held on April the 19th. If time travel is not possible, then perhaps the parish clerk could explain the disparity.
Yeah, of course.
The terms of reference have only come to me literally while we've been in meetings this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to look at them, but it's not us that writes those terms of reference, it's South Holland District Council, so I will go back to elections there tomorrow and ask if there's any disparity. But they have been given all the correct information because we have to quote.
Well, I have printed a copy of it down. I'll give it to you before I leave tonight, okay?
That's right, I've got it on here,
Okay,
but I
thank
haven't
you.
had a chance to read it. So I will go back to them with any disparity, but they've had all the agenda item numbers and everything.
But the terms of reference also state that the council is required to ensure that community governance within the area under review will be reflective of the identities and interests of the community in that area and is effective and convenient. I noticed that the Cowbit are looking to increase their councillors, but Holbeach is looking to reduce the amount of councillors. You haven't been able to get the amount of councillors to meet the requirements you have of 18. I spent several months outside of the country here, so I don't want to be on the council and be accused of not being active. So that's why I'm not standing. The second reason is perhaps due to the reasons for the extraordinary meeting here tonight, which you're going to be discussing on item 2022-3020. Perhaps with all the media reactions to this, some councillors may want to consider their position within the council. There is a ridiculously poorly executed banner at the market near Holbeach Medical Centre. I understand the responsibility lies with South Holland District Council. Does the parish council not have any input into the way they do this with the unprofessional way it's been done and the pixelated sign? I did take this up with the parish clerk, who referred me to the South Holland District Council. I'm surprised you don't have any input into what goes on with the banners.
Yeah. Sophie?
Yeah, the banner, I believe, was bought through the Welcome Back funding, which is dealt with at South Holland District Council. We haven't had any input into that banner as a parish council, so all we can do is refer you to South Holland District.
But you don't have an opinion on it?
I mean,
We wasn't even asked.
No.
Oh, okay, fine.
no, we weren't asked.
Okay, the new street furniture poster board outside All Saints has not been finished yet. I understand that's responsibility of South Holland District Council, or is it the responsibility of the Parish Council? I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. Digital screen. So that again was bought through the Welcome Back funding, which is governmentally through South Holland District Council. They got the permission to site it there, but we are responsible for maintaining it and running it as a parish council.
So when will it be completed?
So the SIM card currently is just been topped up. We've had a few issues with it updating. It's been connecting to the internet but not the server, so I've been liaising with the company who supply the screen just to get the issues sorted out. So it should hopefully be sorted this week.
I'm more concerned about the actual paper itself. It's not finished, it's uneven, and it's very dangerous.
We can get that on the work schedule for our team to just cut up the paving slabs. But we have had cones there previously over the top of where the paving slabs were cut out, just to make sure that people are aware that there is a dip there.
There is no cones there tonight as I came past.
No. They were there.
All I can say is, from what you just said, I'm not sure where the speck of sawdust is and where the plank is between South Hull District Council and Ewood Cells.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can just follow on from the gentleman, I'm appalled by the banner that's gone up, but it don't seem to resemble anything of Holwich. Rolling green fields? No, we've not got cows and sheep like that, so I don't know who commissioned it and who agreed to it, but it's not really Holwich. And he also said about back to the future. I was just wondering if Mr. and Mrs. Kinder have been invited to bring their DeLorean to the lighting of the beacon.
No, and why would they?
Well, the notice in the paper today says a road closure for the 2nd of June 2019.
Well, that's not down to us, is it? We've put in the correct dates and we've got the correct permissions, so whatever goes in the paper is not down to us.
And does that also apply for the 5th of June,
What?
for the road closure on Church Street?
The road closures have the correct dates and the correct paperwork has been submitted and we've got the correct paperwork back from LCC, so whatever they've put in the paper is again not down to us.
You're confident on that, are you?
Well, if the date is wrong, in the paper, our paperwork, the date is correct. So,
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. And following on from what Councillor Wiltshire said last meeting, time's running on. But I don't live in Holwich due to the harassment campaign that was waged against me, which I was going to outline in the open forum, but we haven't got time tonight, so thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Is there any more questions from the public? No? Okay, so I'll now instate the standing orders and commence with our first agenda item, which is 2022-3-018, and that's apologies for absence and reasons given.
I've received no apologies, but Councillor Penny is absent without apologies.
Okay, so item 2022-3-019 is declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Localism Act 2011 and to consider any requests for dispensations in respect of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest in agendaed items being discussed. Is there any pecuniary interest? Non-pecuniary? No. If we get to an item and you feel you have, you can disclose it before. Okay, so item 2022-3-020 is to review the paperwork submitted for corruptions and to resolve to agree to co-opt. Right, so we've received paperwork in from Mr. Lane.
Why isn't it attached to the, you've got an agenda attached to the email, why wasn't the paperwork attached to it?
Because you have it on your drive too.
Well, sorry, but it might make more sense to put it on the email and then we print it out.
It's
So since I don't have one, can I have a look at it
on
then?
this one, it's been on from the meeting before.
Yeah,
Right,
it's all there.
consider it there.
But you
It
just
should
said
be on the
you
email.
haven't read it.
It would make sense to stick on the email.
What,
If
for an
we
agenda?
discuss, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we're going to say it reviewed paperwork supplied for corruption resolved to agree to co-opt. It would make sense to print out that with it and put it out the agenda.
So you want to print every item off?
We've got everything else in terms of the other one, so why not this one?
This is your code of conduct in that you agreed, and and that's why it's out tonight, because it's been discussed. When have we ever printed off
What?
an information pack for you?
Why
You haven't.
would it make a lot more sense to put an email?
I'll just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put that down,
The co-option paperwork was in the drive for the last meeting, but then didn't get considered because we didn't receive a response back for that meeting to double check whether they still wanted to be
I
co-opted.
recall seeing it, but also recalled a very negative reaction from yourself.
The co-option paperwork that you just asked for was given out in the drive. If you have difficulty accessing the drive, any one of us councillors can help you, but you haven't come to get help accessing the information. The information is available to every single councillor, Tim.
And I also recall there being negative responses from 2 other councils.
Well, that can be discussed at the next agenda item, but
That's for you, that's what you do.
you've just said that you haven't had access to the paperwork. You have had access to the paperwork and you haven't read it.
Right, sorry, sidetrack there. So we have a member of the public wishing to be co-opted, Stephen Lawrence Lane. Is that person in the room? Are they not here? No? Okay, so obviously the paperwork's been checked out, the requirements. And as Tim said, there's obviously been information circulated that's been read because you've just indicated you have read it.
Yep.
So if we can take a vote then for people in favour of Stephen, the proposer,
I propose.
and seconder. Okay. No seconder. So no vote.
Okay. Democracy at work.
Okay, so okay, item 2022/3-021 is to discuss and agree ways to improve transparency, conduct, including bullying, and procedures including finance and governance audit within the council. Who wants to kick off?
Mr Chairman, I may speak to good morning, please.
Of course you can.
I don't see any point whatsoever in having a finance and governance audit, and every year we are legally obliged to have an external auditor come in, review all of our finance and governance documents to sign off for the annual AGAR report. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Tim?
Was an opinion, apparently according to Sophie, that this item was going to be deferred because of lack of numbers. And obviously you appreciate, I don't really give my apologies for this meeting, but due to circumstances I've actually managed to make it after all. I was in the impression this was going to be deferred.
No, we're discussing it now.
Well, this was not the intention as Sophie put it.
Well, you said you weren't coming and now you're here, so...
Don't bring
let's-
the intention to the email that she sent out saying that...
No, let's discuss that and let's give it. What we're trying to do here, Tim, is get over these boundaries that keep coming up at these parish meetings. We can't have it. Let's talk about it now, get it out in the open. We all want to be transparent and honest. Let's just talk about the agenda item and get it out there, Tim.
Well, the situation
We're not
is, as I
deferring
made you aware, was that I was going to bring a rather long dossier of information to bring to the council notice, and that was the point of it being deferred. Since Sophie said that one agenda items to be deferred, then that was an indication to be dealt with later on, at which point I would do it then.
I'm sorry, Tim, but you gave your apologies, but you're here. It's the same principle. So we're discussing this now. So you either discuss it now, or you can bring it up later.
In terms of transparency. Well,
Well,
on the issues of bullying, at the end of the day, I have significant documentary evidence of to do with bullying and lack of transparency that I would like to bring the council attention to. Now, the previous meeting we had, where Isabel said, we're not going to talk about it because I haven't read it, with reference to my report.
Your report,
yeah. And I'm now saying that this is not ready to be dealt with at this point in time.
Because you're not going to read it. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm only here to have a chat with you, so
You're
I'm
talking,
earlier.
Tim, I'm not arguing with you. You said
Oh, you are?
you've not prepared a document, so you haven't come pre-armed, so you
I
don't want to discuss it.
I was told on Sophie's email that this matter will be deferred to the next meeting.
Let's just get it out in the open, Tim. Just deliver it now.
Well, why? If no information isn't there, we haven't got systematic evidence to do with it.
Are you privileged with that information only then? Because you've not shared it with us.
At this point in time, yes.
So the email was, Tim, you gave your apologies for tonight's meeting. You said you had another appointment that you could not move,
Absolutely.
which
Could
you
I move?
obviously
Which one
managed
did?
to move.
No, I didn't manage to move it. I managed to get through quicker than I thought I would.
Okay, so you were in attendance.
I'm in attendance.
We did say for this agenda item, as you know, several councillors worked together with this via email with you to try and get this agended for you to discuss your concerns. And as you said you weren't able to be at the meeting, we did say that we'd be able to look at alternative dates to be able to discuss it. However, you did request an agenda item in April with a report with your concerns. So if you were able to and ready to discuss them then, with the relevant evidence that you say you have, why are you now unable to discuss it now?
Because the item had already been deferred. I'm referring to is Councillor Hutchinson Senior's email saying there's little point in meeting if we can't attend, so if anyone can give their ballot between Tuesday and Thursday that week, arrange another date. And that was, and the response from Peter was agreed, Isabel. And that was the situation as far as I'm aware, that this item's going to be deferred to a later date.
Isabel.
Firstly, do not refer to me as Councillor Hutchinson Senior. Refer to me by my full name if you want to differentiate between the two of us. Thank you.
I thought it was being polite.
No, okay. And secondly, like has just been said, you had the information that you wished to discuss at the April meeting. You came armed, you gave it out to the public and the press. So therefore, if you had evidence and things that you wanted to discuss in April, why are you not got that evidence with you tonight?
Because I shouldn't be. I haven't prepared for it. I'm only here by chance because I managed to get home sooner than I thought I would. And I thought I'd come along to turn up as I was supposed to do. That's exactly what I've done. But this agenda, this item was already deferred previously by email. Yes, it was. You read the email, shouldn't you?
Isabel.
You cannot defer anything by email. An agreement to defer is only done at a meeting. We do not make decisions via email.
Tim, no one councillor can make any decision on behalf of council. No one councillor can work alone. It's in our code of conduct and standing order. We brought the code of conduct so we can specifically discuss your item, which is bullying, harassment and discrimination, which are traits that we are wanting to talk
Mr.
about.
Chairman.
You've wanted this for months to get out.
Mr. Chairman, I want this to be transparent. I want to make sure that everybody has all the evidence at their disposal. That is what I've got documentary evidence to serve. I've got it for everybody, and everybody will have it. All the copies of all the bullying and everything that's gone on. But this item was supposed to be deferred.
I'm sorry, Tim, I don't agree with you. Mark?
Especially because the camera is okay if I remain seated.
Of course, yeah.
In relation to this evidence then that you say that you have, is this kind of as if it is relevantly recent in relation to the councillors? Are you talking councillors and this going back years? Because if it's in relation to recent councillors, and there is two that I can think of, then everyone around the table knows the councillors and knows that they've resigned, and surely that is something that we can discuss and get out now.
No, because it goes back even further now. This goes back years.
So that's evidence that you have,
Yes,
no one is privy to.
at this moment in time, because we had the meeting was supposed to be deferred. At that point, I was going to bring it out at that point.
Okay, but
This is an extraordinary general meeting. This is not discuss ordinary business. I can understand an extraordinary general meeting to deal with item 22, because that is something that needs to be done straight away. I fully understand that. But as everything else in this could have been dealt with at the formal council meeting. It's not urgent.
so again, it's just if I can clarify in relation through the chair that an issue was raised in relation to bullying, in relation to transparency, in relation to code of conducts and finance and governance audits within the council. The initial collaboration through the council was to try and do this in a closed session meeting, so we can get everything out in the open within the council to discuss what the issues were and move it forward. That was not acceptable. To do that in a closed session meeting, it had to be done in an open session meeting, which is why Councillor Wiltshire then issued his report at the April meeting. Okay, at that point, that particular report item in closed session didn't go on, and it was then deferred. It wasn't given a timescale to what it was deferred to. However, it was proposed that it was in the next agenda meeting. Again, we went through the process of it can't be in closed session, and as a council we've come for the transparency and the openness to say we'll put it into an open session meeting where everyone has vision of what is going on, and we're now in an open session meeting with full council, and yet we still can't discuss it. Surely there are certain items, if Councillor Wiltshire has items that he wants to bring up at a later date that are predating the ones he currently wants to discuss, and everyone has sight of what they are, they can be just discussed surely at a later date. Can we please at least discuss the ones that were on the report so we can move this forward, because this is ridiculous.
Agree with you, Mark. And Tim, this is the ideal opportunity. We have given you the mechanics to talk about all of this that you talked about.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, no, you haven't. Because
I'm speaking as your chair, and you're now being rude. Please refrain from being rude. We are giving you the opportunity here to bring all of this out. If you're talking about things that have happened in the past, before even we were councillors,
no,
there's not a lot we can do.
It's not when you were councillors.
If it's historical stuff that you're being told, how do you know that it's truthful if you've not investigated, if you've not shared it, so that you get both sides of the story? We want to get this out in the open, and you're trying to put it back in the closet.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I
can then,
the
whole point of it was to show you the evidence, and you issue the challenge, and you respond to it. That's the whole point.
We have given you
we cannot go forward with this thing without having all the evidence on the table. Otherwise, what is the point? We're never going to get anywhere near transparency or get rid of this bullying.
Well, in your book, Tim, to be honest, you just have completely contradicted what it is you're talking about. Mark?
From my recollection of Councillor Wiltshire's report, one of the issues that was listed down on that was the suggested bullying of Councillor Powell,
yeah,
in relation to her leaving the council, and if I may, open it up, in the sense of there was discussion that was on via email in relation to the Ukraine situation, where there were suggestions of, I believe Councillor Carter had set up a drop-off centre for relief to Ukraine, and I know Councillor Stevens said about the fact that we could signpost to that point and drop off. Councillor Favell came back and said that's fine, but what about for the people in Holwich, so that everyone doesn't drive? And I know it was a comment from Councillor Stevens that was then raised in the sense of I don't know why I bother, or something along.
My comment was, okay, I won't bother anymore.
Sorry, Councillor Stevens. In that sense, Councillor Favell took that as a negative comment, and in her words, it was the straw that broke the camel's back, is what she said.
So can I just put a follow-up into this?
Of course you can.
I didn't look at any of my emails for the rest of the day till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I read through that Councillor Sam Favell had resigned. My first thing I did was to call Jan and ask her for Councillor Favell's phone number, which she wouldn't give me because obviously GDPR. But she did make it known to me that there was a file on HPC driver had contact phone numbers. I called Sam, because I thought Sam was my friend, and I had a very long discussion with her, and cleared the air, because I wasn't trying to be aggressive with her. I'm not a bully, I've never have been, and I never will be.
So
Excuse me, I'm talking.
Why did you call me a fucking wanker then?
Tim, I've warned you, Tim. That's your second strike. You put your hand up when you want to speak, please. Sorry, Rick.
Sorry.
Can you continue?
Yes, certainly. So we cleared the air, Sam and I. Sam made some allegations to me that I won't quote today. But my comment in the email was not the main reason for Sam leaving. Far from it. And I know for a fact that Councillor Favell has also spoken to other people with her reasons for leaving.
Yeah. Thank you for Mark, do you want to continue?
Yeah, no, it was just in the sense of it, both people had valid points. Councillor Stevens had a valid point in the sense that we were signposting to Councillor Carter in relation to if anyone wanted to donate, that was where you could drop it off. I think one of the only suggestion that was made, and again I did follow up with an email saying literally, if you're emailing, it's black and white. If somebody wants to take a certain comment one way, it can be taken one way. It can be taken another way. There is no grey area. If you're doing it face to face, you can see what somebody means. Over emails, it can't. And one area I do want to say is that on the council emails, I think too many times things are said and things are put across in a manner that can be misread.
Yeah.
There is another important thing that we need to take into account is that when council meets and we debate, that's what we're here. We're here to talk about the options and what's best in our positions in public post. And we're not going to agree. We are going to debate and we're not going to agree. But that point of not agreeing is not bullying. It's personally, it's your airing your view. And when that gets confused with bullying just because you don't agree, then unfortunately we're on a losing battle on that one. And when emails are ping-ponging about, and the tone or the undertone, as Mark has just pointed out, is underlying under that, and there is a thread, and it could be a quote from our standing orders, the harassment side of it. They can all be seen as being bullying. And these are things that we do not stand for, but Tim is trying to bring them to the forefront of council, which is great. That's what we're doing here now. And this is the opportunity to clear the air so that we can move on. But again, you're going to just not allow us to be moving on because you want to drag out even further. Tim?
I fully accept what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, and I fully understand exactly what you're trying to do with this. However, my colleague, Mr. Murphy here, made a standards complaint recently with regard to Mr. Stevens over there, where Mr. Stevens had said to me that he would force me off the council, and secondly, he used very foul language within a closed session.
Excuse me, point of order.
And
Yes,
the issue is here is that not only did he suffer, the vice chair actually said she thoroughly agreed with him,
Okay,
and you as the chairman did nothing about it. I was bullied, I was intimidated and bullied, and you as the chairman did nothing about it.
First of all, thanks for bringing this up. Rick, can I come back to you in a second?
Yes.
How do you know that I did nothing about that?
As my understanding of it was, yourself, the clerk, and Mr. Stevens had a meeting and you resolved the issue between you, but it was never dealt with.
How do you know it wasn't dealt with?
Where was the sanction?
What sanction can I give Rick for whatever he said at the meeting that I was not at? And what sanction can I give you?
Well, the situation is
I
I as a chairman happy with one council using foul language against another and being acting in an intimidating fashion. The fact is, we've had a situation where Sam Farrell felt that she was bullied off the council, and I experienced the same thing with myself, with the same person who told me, I'm going to get you off this thing, you'll get us down this council. So what am I supposed to do?
first of all, you're saying that you're talking to me and you're trying to put words into my mouth that did not happen. And you've also put that in
You've not
writing,
made
because I've
me
seen it, and I've
fully-
seen that in your report, where you're saying that I'm supporting that behaviour, which I'm not. It's
No,
one of the
Vice Chair.
things, it's
The
one of the
Vice Chair.
things that has happened to me since school, and I have been fortunate to survive bullying. So you can't read me the right act about bullying, Tim.
Wasn't
Secondly,
yourself as the Vice Chair?
when a point of order is called, it's the chairman's and only the chairman's decision to accept that point of order. Now, if you understand the standing orders, you know what that means. So I could decline Rick's point of order because there's no order to call, because Rick's going to speak next. All right?
I would just like to say that the complaint that was put into standards from Councillor Murphy wasn't just one, it was two. One against both myself and Councillor Wiltshire, and currently under investigation by standards. And as it clearly says in the email, they must not be discussed because of confidentiality.
Yeah.
Which is why I have not responded in any emails or made any comments about it.
Thank you. Just to clear that point up before I come to you, Mark, it does clearly state in the standards complaint that the item is to be kept confidential.
I thought
You
it was
actually
our decision.
you stated in an email that we'd all read a factual statement that Mark had released to standards, which we haven't. So where did that come from? That is another...
You were all supplied with the standard complaint.
No, none of
I
us have
didn't
seen it.
know.
None of us have seen it.
Oh, I do apologise.
Yeah, you should, and to Mark, because you said that you gave the indication that Mark had circulated his complaint, but he hasn't. None of us have seen Rick's either.
I assumed it was circulated.
No, it's a completely
confidential.
confidential, and you should not talk about it publicly, but you have. Isabel.
Can I just come back on that point? I mean, again, I know you knew, Tim, and I understand it takes time to learn, but you have continued, when another standards complaint was put in against you by myself and Sophie, you then circulated that same information out to the rest of the council and the press. In what part did you not understand in the letter that came to you from District Council that all standards complaints are confidential? You've already broken confidentiality I don't know how many times, and being new on the council is not an excuse for that. You've got your code of conduct there, you've signed your documentation, you should realise that something, when it says it's confidential, it means it's confidential.
Thank you so much. Mark.
If I can just also clarify, I'm not going to reveal any comments in relation to the standards complaint, obviously, that I raised. However, I do want to just clarify two things. The first thing is my understanding as a serving councillor that you can personally put in a standards complaint, anyone can. It doesn't have to go through the clerk of the council. A councillor can raise a standards complaint if they feel that anybody has breached the code of conduct. At that said meeting, that both my standards complaint was raised against Councillor Wiltshire and Councillor Stevens. I was not prepared to put up with, as I raised a point of order on the actual meeting, the conduct that went on in that meeting, which is why I raised the standards complaint. Now, as far as a council is concerned, a councillor and any member of the public, they can raise any complaint via standards, and that is the only official way as a council, a councillor can raise or a council can deal with an issue related to or attached to a particular councillor. I did have a phone call with the clerk in relation to, do I need to go through the clerk? I'm also relatively new on the council and very naive and ignorant at times about the ins and outs of how a council runs. So my first port of call was to ring the clerk and see what I needed to do. Did I need to go through that or not? And I did have a conversation with the clerk in relation to how the current council, as is very much it isn't as combative as previous councils have been, and in that sense, how the behaviour, in some cases, maybe was paramount to being a regular occurrence on previous councils. My comment to the clerk, and I will stand by it, was, I don't care if it happens once, it is too much, I am not prepared to put up with it, therefore I will be raising a standards report on it, which is what I did. And to his credit, I have to say that Councillor Stevens has not reacted negatively in any other meeting since that was raised. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened in the meeting and what my report was, because it is confidential. However, seeing as it has been brought up in such evidence as to date, the only people, I will make this aware as well, that received that is, in my understanding, the clerk, I think. No, not the clerk. So it's Councillor Stevens received a copy, and Councillor Wiltshire will receive a copy, and I obviously send a copy, so I have a copy of it. But it is only those people who the standards makes a decision. I have chased standards and asked for a decision, because this was now in the 23rd of March that I submitted it, and we are still waiting a decision. Now, if that is the only port of call we've got to deal with anything negative that a councillor does, it's not a fault of this council, it is a fault of the Localism Act and the situation with parish councils, that we have no way of dealing with bullying if it is paramount. So the only thing we have available is a standards complaint.
Thank you, Mark. You are quite right. With regards to standards and councillors, all of this direction of bullying should go straight to monitoring. They had to deal with it, but you just mentioned the time constraints that were involved is very frustrating. Hence why we're sitting here tonight discussing this, because we want to eradicate it as much as possible and just get it out there. We're not scared of it, we're not frightened of it, we want to talk about it. The only other avenue is criminal proceedings. So unless you've got criminal proceedings, then you need to go to the police. So if you're just complaining about councillors, they should go to the monitoring team for them to deal with, and let's crack on and let's get things done. If we all worked in a corporate body, we are a corporate body as a parish council, if we was employees, it would be a different matter. If you wouldn't send that email to a member of staff, you shouldn't be sending it to a council. You should treat us all with the same respect as per our known principles. Sophie.
Can I just ask you, your evidence that you have, does that relate to allegations of individual councillors? So, i.e., the evidence you have, is that making an allegation of bullying, etc., or wrongdoing against an individual councillor, or is it against the council as a whole?
Individual councillors.
Okay, so
I'm not
then
suggesting it's all bad.
yeah, so as we have discussed before, and within the email trail of this agenda item, we did go through this many a time to make sure that whatever was brought to the table we were able to discuss in public, because that was important. If it's an allegation against an individual councillor, like Marcus said, the only way that that can be dealt with is to go through standards. Because if you're saying that, for example, an individual councillor is guilty of bullying, then if you bring that to us, one, we can't deal with it under the Localism Act. Can't remember the exact section, but and even if, for example, that did enable us to deal with that, that would not be impartial, because those councillors, presumably you're making allegations against, would be part of the decision making. So the reason it goes to South Holland is their monitoring officer will deal with that, decide whether they have breached the code of conduct or not. There are sanctions that they can apply to councillors if they have breached the code of conduct, but they also have an independent person who overviews the whole process. So that will be dealt with completely separately to us as a council, which if there are serious allegations that you have and evidence, then that's the only way to deal with it. Or like Stephen has said, if there's criminal allegations that you've got, that needs to be dealt with to the police. So if you've got ideas of what we could do as a council to improve on transparency, on finance, on procedures, on anything we could improve as a council as a whole, that can be discussed and we can discuss that. But we can't do anything, unfortunately, with council conduct individually. It's not like you're an employee where you can go down a disciplinary or we can employ sanctions. We can't do that because the Localism Act doesn't enable us to. So it has to go to standards, which is a failing of the Localism Act, because then, like with many parish councils, you do end up with bad behaviour going on and there's nothing you can do about it. So my question to everybody would be, does anybody have any ideas of ways the council can improve? Yes, it's all well and good discussing the evidence and going, okay, they're guilty, but what are we going to do about it? What are we actually going to do to try and improve this situation? If people are bringing issues to us, the only thing as a council we can do is there any way we can change our structure? Is there any procedures we can change? Is there other things that we could do differently to try and improve the situation with the council?
Just before I invite you to speak, bullying, harassment and discrimination is not one way to deal with a bully, and that's what's going on here. Tim?
I didn't understand that comment.
Under number 2 of your code of conduct, bullying, harassment and discrimination, that whole paragraph that applies to the discussions that we're having keep going round and round in circles. We need to resolve it.
Right, I thoroughly agree with Mr. Chairman, and I think, I thoroughly agree. We're going to move this one forward. Let's all agree. Let's all agree effectively that the South London District Council system is ineffective. They would agree with that themselves. They know they've got no realistic sanction over anybody on this council, and therefore that isn't going to be. I understand what Councillor Hutchinson says, and that is the appropriate means, but it's not going to achieve anything. It's not going to stop the bullying. We've got to stop that ourselves.
Okay, let's stop it now.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, this is kind of very content bullying, but at the end of the day, if we can get a situation whereby we can totally eradicate this bullying and start to get everybody around the table correctly, and also be completely open and transparent about everything that we could possibly can. There are some issues that have to go into closed session. I fully agree. Contracting and HR matters, yes, that has to be in closed session. But everything else should be open and transparent. We've got people here now who even bring their own cameras to ensure that they've got a complete and open record of everything. I know we've got a camera anyway. We haven't got the trust of the town here. The parish council is held in utter contempt by this town. There's no joint working. People don't want to work with the parish council. We've got to recognise that. Nobody wants to be a part of this. We can't get council for love nor money. Even when people trying to join, they can't get in, they're getting blackballed. We're in a situation, we're in a crisis situation, but the way to resolve it is stop the bullying. Open ourselves up to people that we may not otherwise want to have in the council. Let's have some fresh perspective. Let's have some younger people in here. Let's get some transparency out there. Let's show the town that we've got something to offer them. We can stop it as easy as that, but you've got to take the self-interest out of it. You've got to stop all this politicking that's going on. We've got to start to work together.
Just before you, I'll let you speak, Mark. To be honest, everything you said makes sense. And being a member of committees and working together is what it's all about. And I look around this room and I see everybody on a committee working. And we have been functioning, we have been coming up with ideas, putting on events for the public, we've been amending, we've been grabbing hold of funding where we can. We are not dysfunctional. But if you're going around saying we are dysfunctional to people, they're going to believe that we are dysfunctional. Positivity spreads positivity, in my view. But
No, Mr. Chairman, that's propaganda.
No.
People don't believe it.
Let me finish, Tim, because I agreed with you right at the start. Don't let me withdraw that. Because we need to stop all of this tit for tat. If there was full transparency, you'd be fully loaded with all your evidence to dish out to us, and it'd be up here, you'd be able to tell us all what was bothering you, and you could tell the press and everybody, as you've been copying them into emails and things like that, and some of those are confidential as well in that trail. We need to work better together, Tim.
Mr. Chairman, there's no confidential in our email system. Sophie gets to read everything.
I'm sorry, there is, and you
We've already had this one.
No, and you've done it yet again, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. Who had that hand up, Mark? Thank you.
Two things. Firstly, in relation to transparency, we are transparent as a council, I feel, by the way we do our agendas. However, I think we could go an additional step, because none of the information that is on the so-called drive is available to anyone other than a councillor. The minutes have to be a true record of what the agenda is. So there is very little additional meat on the bones, for want of a better word, that goes into the minutes. So when thinking from a parishioner point of view, they are looking at the information that we're giving out, it is very sparse. And it could then lead to the suggestion that we're keeping all of that information to ourselves, and therefore we're not transparent. Whereas, personally, I feel, especially from what I've seen, we are trying to be as transparent as we can. I don't know whether, I know that maybe we can have the support of South London District Council in relation to how they do their agendas and minutes and the way that they put their information out, to see if there's anything we can do to increase transparency, or the view of transparency, in that context that we can take on board from them.
It's a good point there, because I've actually spoken to a district council about this same situation, and they have a demographic whole team of people that work to put all of these packs together. But when we look at our agendas in comparison to theirs, there's a lot of public information that is attached to agendas. It's just knowing where to find it, and they put it all sort of in one place, and document after document after document after document. And it is something that we did talk about, and it has been spoken about previously. So again, there's a valid point there. How much documentation can we provide for the agenda? Tim's mentioned that when he came, he hadn't seen some co-option paperwork, which has been sat on the drive for 2 months, which we've all seen, and then later Tim said that he'd read some emails and things like around the co-option paperwork. So I do agree, there is some bits and pieces that may be equivalent to be going out with the agenda so that members of the public can see it.
If I can have a follow-up on that. I think the other thing we need to be really careful of for both acting councillors and people that do potentially have maybe a pecuniary interest or even a non-pecuniary interest in any agenda items, is that if we are having things that are going out that we're going to get a contractor in to do, that we do ensure that we have that 2 or 3 quotes, especially if it is the potential to be seen that we're not being transparent in that context, if that makes sense.
And not, sorry.
Just for everybody to speak with. Yes, I mean, that is the rule of the golden rule of 3. And sometimes we have struggled to get those 3 quotes in, which is difficult. You've only got the 2. Great.
Sorry, I was just going to say that the procurement policy that we produced last year covers everything in that contract, etc., and does say that we have to have 3 quotes per available. So we do try, but we also try to spend locally where possible, and it helps hold each parish.
Sophie.
So this was brought up quite a few times, and one time when just on silver training, they were going through the agendas and seeing how we can improve stuff, etc., etc. And you went through one with them to see what documents we could actually release to the public. And of course, there's going to be some agendas that are different, and we can release documents to the public. But for stuff like the quotes for things and things like that, that can't unfortunately be released. Most of the time that's in closed session before it's been agreed. Once it's been agreed, it then goes onto the check register, which is published. And generally, the majority of our agenda items and supporting documents can't be released. I think we have hopefully got a meeting arranged with our district councillors for next week. So I think that's something we could probably discuss with them to see whether we can get some support of how they put these packs together and what items they would feel would be beneficial for the public, and see if there's any other documents we can pop out. But yes, it has been looked at before.
Follow that through, Mark.
Just one quick one. On a general principle, unless it absolutely has to be held in secret or kept back for any reason, it goes out there. That's the simple transparency. That's the transparency I'm looking for anyway. We've got to stop this behind closed doors, because that's causing all the problems in the town.
I'm just racking my brains for the last basically year. I'm not aware of any item that's gone into closed session that doesn't legally have to. So if you're aware of any, could you just let us know? Because
Well, there was a strong push to push this discussion into the closed session.
And
And
if
this
you
is one
remember,
that
I
definitely-
said it should go into public in my email. So, has there been any agenda item in closed session that you feel shouldn't have been in closed session?
No, it's just a general principle.
Okay.
That's
So we're achieving it thus far.
Well, we're moving forward. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do.
Okay. That's just clarifying.
Okay, so we've had a bit of a discussion on ways to improve transparency, conduct including bullying, and procedures including the finance and government's audit within the council. We have touched on most of those points. Just going round the room, does anybody want to add anything at this point? Rick?
Yes, I'd just like to say this tone of emails, some of the emails that come out, to me, are very officious, and there's no need to be. You should, if you're going to write to somebody, you should treat them with the same respect as you would in a council meeting.
Yeah, thank you. A good point.
I won't go on to what Ricky said, but
Rachel?
obviously, I've got of it. I'll probably on to it. Yeah, because obviously I've put up emails in the past before, and it goes to each and every single one of us. I've asked for a general email to go out before to remind people, you know, just keep it how we're meant to. And it should, and it's not just singling anybody out, but we've all had emails we don't like, and I don't want it to happen again.
You're right, we're all a team.
Sophie, Trace?
Yes.
All of us.
All of us, Truce. Mark?
3 things if I may. Yeah, I know.
No, you're right, you go on.
Stand
Okay.
up.
Go on then. First one, I think in relation to emails, I totally agree with the nature of that. I think it leads into the second one. I personally came on the parish council because of all the negative stuff that was on Facebook. There were too many people out there that's willing to throw all the muck and say, you're bad at this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. That's why I came on the council. And to give something back. And after being on the council, I do feel that it is very much that at no point can we as a body be wrong. Personally, that's what I feel. Because we've got to justify why we're doing it. We've got to argue the case all the time, why we're doing it. How about somebody can make a mistake? We are all human, but we have to go through a terrain of arguing, just shielding the whole organisation. If we do something wrong, we do it wrong. We're individuals, we're human, we're going to make mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay for our staff to make mistakes. It's fine if they do something wrong. We learn from it, we move forward. But I personally feel that as an organisation, we don't take that on board. We have to try and prove somebody else wrong rather than accept maybe we could have done this better.
Can I just add a comment before you go on to your third point? This is why no councillor can ever work alone. Because when you work alone, you are opening yourselves up that if that mistake does happen, we don't want that. We want to be a team. So you use the clerk, the proper officer, you use your committee, you use your buddies, you use everybody in this room to work collectively so that what Mark's just demonstrated is everyone saying, you should have done it this way, we could have done it that way. We don't want no infighting because there's no reason for it. We all work as a team. Good point, Mark, thank you. And point 3.
The third one is basically, I also don't think that we have any joined up thinking when it comes to other organisations. Saying we don't have any is wrong. Apologies. We don't have what we should have. For instance, we had Holbridge in blue. For whatever reasons before my time, that is now no longer. Okay, we come up to planting Holbridge. We have currently got a monarch that is going to be celebrating her 70th Jubilee. And we are at a position where we've got Market Hill planters not being done. We've got Hallgate, Fox's Low, William Stukeley, never be implanted because the parish council have not got the budget to fund it. And it was agreed in one of the previous open spaces meetings that the only way that could happen is if an individual did it. Okay? So collectively, we've got organisations in the town that are willing to support. And as has become apparent over the last weekend, we've been doing the Jubilee Garden as a council, as a full organisation. As a parish council, we've planted some plants in the churchyard, in the closed churchyard, cordylines and alpines in each of the tubs, but nothing in the other locations that I've mentioned. Chosen has marvellously donated me £500 to plant them areas up. It was agreed that I would have to do that as an individual, and that's what's happened. Myself and my wife planted them up over the weekend, with the benefit of that money and that funding. I did, and again, it can be deemed as different ways. You could look at this different ways. Again, an email comes across as black and white. Okay? Are you okay if I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, obviously we've done that over the weekend. We've planted the areas up, and I posted them on Facebook. Obviously, I'm doing it as an individual. Okay? And from Councillor Hutchinson, this was the email that I got on yesterday. Please don't take this the wrong way, but if you want to post work you've done that is related to the parish council, could you send it through to me so it can be posted on the parish Facebook page? You're more than welcome to then share it to your personal page. You've done some great work planting up all those areas, but I'm sure it wasn't your intention. But your post about the churchyard could easily be interpreted by people that you have planted this all yourself with the money you have received from Chosen. With all the negativity that is going around at the moment, I just feel it is even more important that posts that relate to work that the parish council has done or individuals have done on behalf of the council are posted to the parish page first, so we get as much positive PR out there as possible. Now, I'm the first to agree that we needed positive PR, as I said in our PR and IT email stream that went on in relation to the planting. However, I could read that and I could say, I'm being told by the Vice Chair of the Council that I can't post what I want to post as an individual on my Facebook page. I'm not going to take that as bullying, because it's not in that intention. However, we shouldn't be looking at this whole environment and saying, you can't post it first because that might put us in a negative light. Because what we are all doing is the benefit of the parishioners, the benefit of the community. We've got organisations in this location that are all for the benefit of Holbeach, and it's about time we all pull together and work together. South London District Council, ourselves, charities, volunteers, and get people to amass, to get behind Holbeach Parish Council, not try and outscore them, because that's what I currently see we're doing. It's not about point scoring, it's about doing the best for the parishioners.
I'd like to make a quick comment about the Jubilee Garden, because it was hard work for us that were there. I thank everybody that helped. A number of people who lived in Holbeach, and every single one of them said the same thing: what a fantastic job we were doing at the Jubilee Garden, and how in the years to come it's going to look really, really great. I did at the same time try, like I always do, to recruit people, and the resounding answer was no.
I think, Mark, you've made a comment, a valid comment about Facebook and social media and how crucial it is in people's lives, and those little embracements that they are rewarded. I turned my Facebook off on the weekend because I then saw some very negative posts on work that had been done. Quotes from your people that you're quoting against the work that we were doing, and it's disheartening. It's not I agree 100% with what you're saying. There is so much more we could do, but sometimes there is other people that don't allow us to infiltrate and to work together, or they will do nothing but slate whatever we do is not good enough. But we keep trying, and these people around this table are the workers and the backbone of this council. That's why we're sat here, and we haven't walked, we haven't resigned. We've not been bullied, yes, we've disagreed. But it's about getting on and doing it, and being a part of the team. The work's very hard work, and it's amazing. Yeah.
Just a quick one. Obviously, Mark has a very good relation with Chosen, as do I. I also have got a lot of good relations with a lot of other organisations. I run a charity, I do that. The problem is they won't work with the council, and that's the problem. We've got to reform ourselves and get this council working properly before we are going to get them on board. It's the truth of it.
I understand where you're coming from, Mark, I really do. But the issue is that Chosen gave you that money. Yeah? If you'd have asked them for that money on behalf of the council, the answer would have been no, I suspect. Yes?
I don't know.
But they gave you the money. But then the post went out, not on yours, but on another post, it went out to say that the money was going to be used to plant the churchyard. Now the public will perceive that all the churchyards are being used, the money goes out for the flowers in the churchyard, which is great that they want to support doing something in the churchyard, but then that also makes us look like we've done nothing. And it's about getting the right balance there, that we're all doing stuff. We're all doing our own little bits and pieces to try and make this town better. And it's not about point scoring, but it has become about point scoring because of things that have happened in the recent past and the long distance past, where people feel that they can slate the parish council and say that we're doing everything wrong, and if we retaliate and say anything against anybody else, then we're the bad ones. But ultimately, we are all trying to do our bit for the town. And however we choose to do it is our own prerogative. But it's about, I just feel that was a little bit of a dig back at us. That's how I saw it. No, it may not have been intended that way, but that's the way I saw it.
By other people, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. I want to. Can I just, Rachel, I'll do it, and then I want to move this on because I want these good people to get on their evenings. Rachel.
Yeah, obviously it was quite a crap weekend for Facebook, for everybody.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, because obviously I'm doing my other bits, and we got some negativity as well. So, we're all, like I say, we're all trying to do our own bit, which in our own way. Whatever way it is for the good of Pole Beach. There's no personal agenda, we all care. And it is just getting beyond a damn joke at the minute. And it is going to drive people away. And which it is doing. It's getting damn difficult, and like I say, I'm sick to death of Facebook at the minute. But you want to put it out because you want people to know, yeah, things are coming, this is what's happening. Something to look forward to, whatever event or plant an area to make sure people go look at it, whatever it is, we need Facebook. But it is getting hard, but it would be nice if we all shared each other's. No, well, I'll only share yours, or I'll only share yours, or whatever. Whatever it is, we'll share it, sod it.
Which is what I do.
Well, can I just explain why?
Yeah.
So, again, it wasn't point scoring or anything like that. We've had this discussion around the table we will know, we've had this discussion around the table many times. And I know you were only trying to promote positive things, but I don't think, you didn't do it intentionally wrong or anything like that, and it's not necessarily you've done anything wrong. It's just that we've had this discussion around the table where councillors before have posted things on their personal profiles, and we've had this discussion when we've done the social media policy, etc., etc. where if it's stuff that is happening as a council that we are doing or has been involved in, etc., it was agreed that we will be putting that on the parish page, and realistically, because the whole idea is we act as a collective and we don't act on our own, that we wouldn't be posting on our personal profiles of stuff we do as a council, because we do it together. And I know you were posting what you and your wife have been doing planting wise, but it was just the fact that it had the photograph of the whole churchyard, etc., which obviously some of it you planted yourself with the money from Chosen, but the other bit had been planted with parish council money and with several of us around the table. So I think
You think it's the realms of petty?
I'm only trying to put across opinions and decisions we have already made as a council. It's not intention to do anything wrong, but at the same time, if the council has already agreed that that was the way forward, I was only trying to let Mark know that that's what the decision was as a council.
Fully understand that, but regarding the social media policy, when I was on it, it had to have 2 people's approval to go on, didn't it? On our social media. Has that changed? 2 of you had to agree before it's posted on Facebook. Admittedly, I haven't read your policy recently.
It was approved only
It was approved.
Yeah,
months ago.
I've read all the others apart from that, but that needs to be checked in then, because obviously you have got a member there who's on your social media, on your PRIT. Because I think it's circulated, what you're putting on as well, it should be approved by your committee.
I think I remember, just in response to your comment, is that sometimes you would send it to your committee and nobody would respond, but it was something that was quite close, or an achievement that had been achieved and needed to get out there, and then I'm sure that it was amended, but I'll stand
You've got
corrected
very
if not.
responsive people now.
That the PR and IT have delegated powers to post on behalf of, and I don't think it was made to be 2, but I'm just going to move to Mark, and then we need to move this one on.
I understand what you're saying in relation to the fact that it coming across like the parish council are not doing anything, but obviously it is out in public domain that there is a 60-40 split for the money that we had in the open spaces budget, let alone what was in the events budget. Okay, 60% was going to the Jubilee Garden, 40% was going into Churchyard. That's out in open session. It was also clarified at that particular meeting when it was decided that any other planting would have to be done as an individual. I wanted to go forward and in the PR and IT group that I'm in relation to getting positive press, because when Councillor Howden suggested contacting the press and saying at what stage shall we invite the press down to take some photos, I was the first to reply as soon as possible. Let's get some positive press for this council. Everyone else was fine with that. I did tack in there that then could we get, it would be good to include Chosen as they donate £500 towards the planting of the town. And it may also put some proverbial bridges in a PR sense. And your comment back to me was contact the press, yes, but we shouldn't mention Chosen in our release as it was nothing to do with the parish council and we didn't request it. The planting that you've done is lovely, but if it's going to be in the paper, it needs to come from you as a member of the public. We can talk about the churchyard and the Jubilee Garden though. So from a parish council, you can talk about the churchyard and the Jubilee Garden, but if anything else needs to go out there, you're telling me that I have to do that myself through the press as a member of the public. So again, that particular comment went out. I've tried to go from a councillor perspective, let's get the positive press coming in from Holwich Parish Council. We've got a fantastic charity that's given us £500 as a collective. We're doing this for the town, and I get told again, no, we're not going to promote that. So in that sense, just to let you know as well, I've contacted both press organisations and I'll be having meetings with them tomorrow.
Can I just
Yes.
explain? Yeah, again, it's not anything negative, it's just that we're a parish council, we are authorised to do press releases on parish council. That's what we're authorised to do. If you approached Chosen and said, is it all right if we include you in the press release, and we had that authority from Chosen, by all means that's okay, but we can't just go around mentioning, oh, these people have done this, and writing press releases on other people's work, because if they've donated that to you as an individual, that's what they've agreed to do. And unless we haven't got any official communication from them as to exactly what they wanted that planting to go towards, you know, any information that we could give to the press, and if it's all come in second hand and then it all gets muddled and we don't have their authority to put it in the press in the first place, it could just end up causing more problems. That's the only point of view.
I'll just make one quick comment before you go again, Mark. So, in a scenario, that what Chosen's done is absolutely fantastic. They're a wonderful girl, love them to bits. If they'd given that money to the parish council, we wouldn't be having this conversation whatsoever.
But it wasn't a matter of giving it to the parish council because the parish council weren't doing it. It was already agreed that it was in any other areas had to be planted up as an individual because the parish council are not prepared to plant up any other areas currently.
I think the fine's due to not holding licences, and the previous group have still got them, so we haven't actually got authority to plant them.
So it's
because it's not really what you're saying. If we're going to get the truth out there, it's about the licences and who holds them.
And it's not possible to plant up as a parish council, but it is possible to plant them up as an individual in relation to the benefit of the town.
Oh, I understand you got permission from the licence holders to plant them.
Yes.
So that's another different kettle of fish. You went to the people that hold the licences
As an individual.
As an individual.
Yes.
If you'd gone as a parish council, they probably would have said no, you don't know.
But again, that's the biggest problem we've got here, isn't it? We need to make sure that those communications are good enough that we're not going to get said no to.
No, exactly, you're right.
But in relation to the Chosen thing, fully agree with you. We can't be saying that Chosen to donate this and they don't know. But how about we actually do the right thing and approach them and consider them before actually saying, no, you're going to have to go and do it on your own. That's all I would say.
Just not forgetting that we are getting some money from Chosen for the defibrillator, so they do support the parish.
Yeah, exactly, you know, that's all. But I was going to say there, just along those lines, is that I'm sure that if we had spoken to the girls, they would be more than happy that it might be that an assumption was made, and that just might be a communication error that permission hadn't been asked, and I clearly hadn't. But if you'd just asked, again, we wouldn't be having a conversation. But these are learning curves that we're trying to get out of the open.
That's why we're having an open meeting, to make it transparent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Right, so we've discussed that. Does anybody else want to make a comment before we move this one on? And thank you so much for everyone that's opened up tonight and shared any of their views. It's very important we start this working as a team. We have to remember that decisions that are made around this table by full council are the decisions that we follow, whether you've voted for it or not. The overall decision is what we go with. We work together and we move forward, and that truth starts now. And if you kindly report that in the press, that's our pledge to the public. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So moving on to our agenda item 2022/3-022, which is HR, Health and Safety and Data Committee. And this is to exclude the press and public under the Public Bodies Administration to Meetings Act 1960 due to the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the closed session? Rick, Rachel, all those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you, everybody. Meeting closed.